So yeah, we're going to be looking at engineering stroke technical drawing. So the first 5 weeks have mostly been at how you actually create models in one way, shape or form, sketches and then models. For this one, the last stage of the process might be how you communicate those models or how you export them out of Fusion. One of the ways you can communicate your designs, if you're not sharing the 3D design directly, is with 2D engineering drawings, which are still being used for manufacturing in particular. So that's what we're going to have a look at this evening. And we'll have a quick look at how to export and save as and other stuff, usual kind of bits and bobs, which is pretty straightforward. And as I say, a couple of miscellaneous items. So has anyone ever used the technical drawing features within Fusion? Anyone not used them before? Wonderful. I always love it when we're starting from scratch, and then we can start right from the beginning. So this is a technical drawing of one of the components which may be familiar if you remember our jointing exercise. This is basically a technical drawing I've taken from that one of the components in that model, and it's kind of back to front, the whole technical drawing thing. When I was at school, they still taught technical drawing as a separate subject, and you drew it on a drawing board, and it was its own thing. I really enjoyed it, but that was where you started almost in some ways with designing. Would have been on 2D. With CAD these days, you're generally designing in 3D everything, ideating, conceiving, through all the way through to production, and then at the last stage, you might want to turn it into a 2D design for communication purposes. So it's not something you generally start off with. So what you can't do is create a technical drawing and get Fusion to turn that into a three-dimensional object. That's basically, it doesn't work that way around, unfortunately. So the way to do it is have your model first and then convert it basically into an orthographic projection or an isometric projection. Those are your two choices, basically. An orthographic projection, just in case of those that aren't familiar with the terminology, is where you have your front view, your top view, your side view, your end views, whereas an isometric projection is one where it's sort of this style where it's at 30, 60 degrees, and that's an isometric view. So, how do we go about it? Well, I'm going to open up this jointing example we used a few weeks ago, and once you've finished your design and you're ready to then take it into the drawing workspace, the way to get to it is up in our workspace menu, and right down at the bottom we've got drawing. And you've got two options. You've got from design or from animation. So if you have created an animation, you've exploded something within that animation, you can pick it up from that. For this evening, we're just going to look at working from our design. So I'm going to go across and click from design. And you get, typically with Fusion, a dialog box. And it's worth just having a quick look at this, really. So the very top thing is a reference, which basically means what are you going to put into your engineering drawing. It defaults to visible only, so it's gone to kind of blue, because everything that's visible it will try and bring into that drawing. Now on something like this, you generally wouldn't have a technical drawing of all of those components combined together. You'd break it down into individual components for production. So you can do drop down, you can have full assembly. There's an extra component which was turned off, which is a mounting boss. Or you can have selection, and then you can hover over any of these and select the one you want to bring into your technical drawing. I think you won't. There's a space there. Wonderful. So what I'm going to do is just click on one of these. I'll click on the blue one to select it. So pretty straightforward how you decide what you want to bring into your drawing. And then in terms of destination, we've got create new, or you can add it to other drawings or a batch of drawings should you wish. There are different templates. We're not going to look at all of that now, but if you're working for a company and they've got their own template, their own particular way of working with drawings, you can bring in a template at that point. You've got different standards. You've got two here. You've got the ISO standards or the ASME standards, defaults to ISO. Units, millimeters or inches, and the sheet size. This is quite an important one at this stage, to decide what sheet size that you want. And again, it might be based very much on what printers you've got. You know, if your company doesn't, or you don't have access to a large format printer, you may be reduced to using A4. But if not, A3 is a pretty good one. A lot of printers will do A3. So that's quite a standard one. And I think it defaults to A3, in fact. What you do have, which is quite handy, that's all right, is you've got two A4s, one portrait and one landscape, which is quite handy. So I was saying the A4 has got portrait and landscape at this stage, which is quite handy. Top one's the portrait one, so it's, you know, length first, width second, or whichever way around it is, portrait landscape. But we'll go with A3 for this one. So those kind of things you need to sort of think about before you click OK. And then it can take a little while to think about this for some reason. If you've already got another drawing open, it will be quicker, but if it's the first time you've opened up a drawing in that sort of session of Fusion, it can take a good sort of 20 seconds, I've noticed, to actually open up your drawing. So we're now in Drawing Workspace, and everything looks a bit different. So we've got a different array of toolbars or icons in the toolbar at the top, but familiar, hopefully. We've got Create, Modify, Geometry, Dimensions, things like that, and we'll work through what all of those are. But what you get as a first step, you'll get your component sort of floating around somewhere. And basically you can click to place it somewhere that you want. But before you do that, we need to have a look at this dialog box over here. Firstly, orientation. At the moment it's looking at the front view. This is when we place our first view of a component, we're basically creating a base view of which all the other views will be projected from. So we need to think about what is the most logical view for your base view. And if you want to change the view, we can change it to a top view. So looking at it top down. Change it obviously to a right left view or a side view. Home view, they're calling it home view, as an isometric projection. Generally speaking, at this stage, you're going to be doing an orthographic drawing. So you're going to have a top view, a side view, maybe a bottom view, depending on what you need to describe the shape. In this instance, I think probably the front view is absolutely fine for this particular object. Beneath it, we can have a look at these later as well. We've got style. So at the moment, it's showing as a fully shaded object with geometry lines. But you can have it as wireframe with hidden lines, wireframe without hidden lines, shaded without geometry, and shaded with hidden lines. Generally speaking, it will default to wireframe with hidden lines, which is kind of what you want for a technical drawing, generally speaking. And that's what we'll go for. But you can go back at a later date and change that if you want to. So we can change most of this, or all of this, if you need to. The next thing to look at is scale. So when you're thinking about laying out a drawing, you have to also think about you're going to need space around each projection for dimensions, for notes, information. So you need to think about, some idea of how you're going to lay out a drawing beforehand. But if you want to make it bigger or smaller, we can just go over to the scale dialog box and we go to the three dots next to it, and we can change it from 1:1 scale to 2:1 if we want it to be double the size, and obviously higher and bigger, or we want it to be 1:2 and make it half the size. So we can think about the scale of the object in relation to the size of your paper. We'll go back to 1:1.
Custom scales?
Yeah, you can. You can just type in. You can swipe it and type in whatever you like. So you don't have to. Those are just suggestions. So if you want 1:6, you can do so. Things like tangent edges, edge visibility, that's basically removing geometry lines where you don't need them. And I tend to leave it to the default of removing unnecessary geometry lines, because with technical drawings or engineering drawings, you can get too many lines and it can get hard to look at. So the default is tangent edges, sort of clean with all the geometry lines removed. Thread edges will highlight at this stage, but you can remove thread edges if you've modelled your threads and you don't want that modelling to show up in your technical drawing. You can remove them at this stage without having to go back into your model and actually turn off your or change your threads to not being modelled. You can do it at this stage, which is really handy because you generally don't want to actually start drawing your screw threads by and large. But once you've decided essentially, what orientation your base view is, and what size it is, then you can click somewhere on your paper and choose where you're going to put it. You can change the position very easily. Don't have to get it right now, but let's put it somewhere. So I'm going to click and pop it here, and click OK. So there is our base view. We can see we've got a wireframe representation of the front view, and we can see we've got some dotted lines to show the holes running through it. And I think these should be dotted lines, but actually they're too short. That piece is too short to show that as a dotted line. So that's a slight sort of thing to be aware of. If you've got a very short line, it won't always display as a dashed line or a dotted line. Anyway, so that's our base view. Okay, so if you look over here in the Create menu, the very first thing we're doing is creating our base view. From that, we're going to create our projected views. So if I go to the next icon along and click on that, and if I click on the parent view, so the base view, click on it once, and if I move my mouse, it will then take the projected view in the direction you're moving, which is going to be horizontal, vertical, or I think you can do diagonal as well. There we go, and it will give you an isometric view. But as you move it around, it will change the view as you sort of, go from left to right, top to bottom, diagonally, trying to be helpful, obviously. So for this one, I might have a bottom view and a top view and a side view. So I'm going to click once there, move it again, click once there, move it again, click once there, move it again. And then I might put one of these over here somewhere, a isometric view over in the corner. And it's quite handy to have that because someone can instantly get an idea of what the form is. All the information will be in your dimensions and your orthographic projection, but it's quite nice to have that over there. So there's instant recognition of the kind of nature of the shape. So I'm going to click OK, Enter. And then to finish my views, I'm just going to click on the little tick next to it. And then we've got our views. If we want to change the way any of these look, say I want to change this one and I want to get rid of all the hidden dashed lines because it's a bit complicated to look at, so I can just double click on it and it will change the appearance view just for this projected view. So I might change it from parent, so it defaults to being the same type of style as the parent, to one without those hidden lines, just to make it a bit easier to understand the shape. You can also make it shaded should you wish, but that will cost money because when you print it, it will be in colour probably or something like that. So, and we might take off tangent edges. So here's an example of how tangent edges work. So you can see these, hopefully you can see from the back, these lines here that describe the radius. You wouldn't actually see them in reality, so you can choose to remove them should you wish at this stage. So what we can also do, we can move things around. So once you've sort of plonked them where you want them, you might want to adjust them slightly. So to adjust any of them, I'm just going to click on it and just sort of pick it up and drag it around by holding down my left mouse button. And you can see as I move it around, all of the others will stay in relation, vertically or horizontally in that projected view. And we can move it around how you want. And that's with the base view. For any of the projected views, I can move those around, but they will only ever move along the axis they've been projected along. So I can't literally move it up or down. It can only move from side to side. I can just rearrange my layout how I see fit. You can also click on any of these and you can change the scale of any of these independently of the base view. I wouldn't necessarily do that particularly because it then is no longer necessarily got exactly the same projection. It's going to obviously scale up. It's kind of like you wouldn't do that. There are other ways of scaling this up, but if you want to scale up any of your projected views independently of your base view, you can. So that's kind of just the basics of getting your part onto a sheet. If you notice over in the browser, you can see our jointing example has come in and we've got our upper component ticked. We can actually bring in any of the other components should we wish. If we decide we do want another component in this drawing, we can click on it, and now we've brought one of those bushes in, so we can choose what we want to show at this point should you wish. If you want to do a full assembly or something like that, or a full assembly drawing. So once we've got to this stage, it might be time to start thinking about dimensioning it. And we've got lots and lots of different ways of dimensioning your drawings. And it's a bit overwhelming, in all honesty. I'm not going to go through every single way of dimensioning things, other than to say the top one is your smart dimension. And that will try and work it out for you. It'll try and understand what it is you're trying to dimension. That's one I'm going to focus on, because it's the one I tend to use like 99% of the time. But you can use all of the other ones, depending on exactly how you want to annotate your drawing. So this smart dimension, which is D on the keyboard, I'm just going to zoom in a bit on my base view. So to dimension anything, well, there's basically two ways of doing it. You can either select a line and it will dimension that line, or you can select two entities, two lines, and it will dimension either a length or an angle between them. So for instance, if I wanted to dimension the whole, the dimension from this point to this point, I don't have to click on here and here. I can just hover over the whole line and it'll pick it up. Well, it might do actually, it's picking up an edge there, so that's a bad example. So I wanted to do the height of this. I can hover the whole line, it will pick up that edge, or I can pick up each corner if you want to. So let's just do the thickness. And if I click on that line as it's hovered over and click once and move my mouse, then I can move it out to where I want it. Again, we can change. We can change exactly where these dimensions sit, so we can get a nice sort of clean layout. We can just start somewhere. So I'm going to click again to accept it. We're still in dimension mode, so you don't have to go back every time and click dimension button. We can just go through and start putting dimensions on as you want. So say we want to dimension the width up here. We haven't got a whole line to choose if we've got these radiuses. So I'm going to select one line and click on it, and then go over to the other side and click on that, and then move my mouse button up. And that will give me a dimension between 2 points. Click on it again to accept it. If we want to dimension any kind of radius or arc, we just hover over it and it will understand that you're trying to dimension a radius or arc. So if I click on the outside of that circle, it understands, it's a circle, I need to give it a diameter rather than a radius in this case. And again, whilst you've clicked once, you just move your mouse away and put that dimension wherever you want. The same with any of these radiuses on the corner. Not a full radius, not a full circle, sorry, but because it's a fillet, it will give you a radial dimension rather than a diameter. So I'm going to click on that, move my mouse away, put my dimension wherever I want it, and click again to accept it. So it's pretty straightforward, really. Yeah.
I've discovered that I'm looking at it in a sideline view. I'm trying to measure the vertical height. Because of the positioning of the holes, it's not letting me do this.
So is it this one that you want to measure from there? So if you hover over, you'll see a little green box should pop up. You click on that, and then go down and so that whole line is selected. And click on that, it should do it. So it is, again, trying to be helpful. And sometimes it works.
Horizontal rather
No, no, not that I'm aware of. Yes.
Is there any way to offset the lines so that they don't touch the part?
Yeah, that's a good question, and not that I've seen. No, it is. It's not. It hasn't got every single sort of graphical feature you could hope for, unfortunately, within this. It's got a lot, but there's certain things it can't do, which is a bit annoying. There are things like AutoCAD, which is really, designed for this kind of thing, will do more in terms of making, you can hit dashed lines, you can basically make it however you want. This is a bit more basic, unfortunately. So it's.
Are you able to change the colour of the text?
Again, I don't think so. Not that.
Having looked in the preferences, I can't see it.
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. If you double click on any of the dimensions, and we'll get our dimension dialog box popping up. It is worth mentioning one particular thing about this is the linear precision. So it'll go down to 100th of a millimetre as a default. But if you want to change it and you want it to be a 10th of a millimetre, or you want it to be whatever that is, a millionth of a millimetre or something like that, you can alter, the precision. The other thing that is really useful within this dimension dialog box is the tolerances. So if I click on that, you can have a plus minus tolerance put in at this point as well, which is really handy, because helpful for anyone that's actually making this to understand working tolerances you're trying to achieve, and you just obviously can type in the tolerance that you want down there, and I think it brings up a list of the ones you've used previously on this little drop-down menu. So as you start populating it, because my favourite tolerance is 0.15, so that's what might work to generally. So yeah, it'll do stuff like that, but yeah, in terms of making it colourful or dashed lines here and there or having that real sort of level of finesse, it doesn't do. But just for communicating the part, it works pretty well. So it's quite easy. I find it quite easy and quite intuitive to go around and just build up your dimensions. Now, I was taught when I was back in technical drawing school in London College of Furniture many years ago that you should not over-dimension your drawings. You should only put the bare minimum number of dimensions in for someone to understand exactly what it is and not put extra dimensions in. There's various things we can do here to sort of help that process. Up here, we've got our geometry menu, and we can add certain types of geometry which are going to help us define certain things. So we can put in center lines, which is a really handy thing to do. So if we've got a symmetrical object, we know this is a symmetrical object because we designed it and we know it's a symmetrical object. I can put a center line here. I can dimension everything on one side and just put a note saying mirrored around the center line. And then you're not having to put in dimensions on this hole on this side and dimensions on this hole on this side, because although it looks like it would be symmetrical, unless you actually state it, how is anyone actually going to know for sure? So that's a really handy feature. So to do that, I'm going to go up to geometry. If you look at the geometry, we've got center line, center mark pattern, edge extension, things like that. And I'll go through these, but the first one we're going to look at is center line. So if you want to put a center line, say, between these two, the center in here, very simple. You just pick the two lines you want to have a center line between, and obviously they have to be parallel lines. I don't think it'll work on an angle, so it won't work on a curve. So I'm going to choose that one, and it creates a center line. And a center line is a long dash and a short dash. That's the standard sort of style of a center line. So now I can put perhaps another center line from this one to this one and pop that in there as well, just to make it very obvious there's center lines.
Yeah. It knows that you have got them and you drag them out using the projection. It knows that center line runs the whole way up, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's whether you want to show it. You might not want to show it, you get the choice of where you want to put it. You might not want it running all the way through, it might get in the way. Oh yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. It is being recorded, so you can catch up the first half an hour or so.
How do you remove a dimension
If you, yeah.
I put in an extra one, I just want to get rid of it.
So just click on it whilst it's, you hover over it so it goes black, click on it and then hit the delete key. Pretty simple.
Ah, okay, I think I'll click on something else. I want center line.
You can also right click on it and there's delete as well. I mean, I have to say, I use Technical Drawing Workspace for perhaps 2 clients that still like to work in this way. I work and have done wholly in 3D for about the last 15 years, so it's really just for those people that need this and work in this way. So I'll do pretty basic technical drawings just to get exactly what I need across. But for those that want to do really complex ones, I think this will go so far. You know, if you want to take it into AutoCAD and then add more, then you certainly can do, and I'll show you how to export out of this and into something like AutoCAD. There's a couple of little quirks that you need to know if that's something you're interested in doing. I'm not going to work my way around and dimension it all, but what I will just do is I'll carry on showing you how this mirrored element might work. So I'm just going to dimension up some things on one side, so I'm going to put in let's think, I'll put in a dimension between this one and this one, and maybe a dimension between this one and this one. And what I might not do here is try and force a dimension in for the thickness of this piece here, because it's going to get a bit hard to see. There's going to be lots of dimensions overlapping each other, so I might dimension this one down here. I might just put one in over here, and then you can see for the position of this relative to the center and the width there. Technically speaking, I could remove one of these dimensions if you're being mean and you know, and this is so what I was talking to. We know this is 75 millimeters, and we know this is the center line. We know this is 27.5 millimeters, and we know that this is 7 millimeters. We don't actually need to give that dimension because they could work it out. That's probably being a little bit mean, but you could, if you're being really proper about it, you might not put that dimension in.
Looking at it from another point of view, if you've got the dimension on there and you've sent it to somebody to manufacture and they get it wrong, they can't say, well, you didn't tell me what that dimension was.
No, but you can say you had all the information that is there.
But you end up with a fight then.
Yeah, I know. And I'm probably coming from the point of view of a really pernickety technical drawing teacher I had back in the 19s or the 80s or whatever it was. So, yeah, I would always over-dimension if anything, just to be helpful. And what I might also do is pop a dimension down here on this one over here. Might put that over there because it makes more sense. I could dimension the same thing there to there if you wanted to, but I tend to dimension holes from above. And then I might also put a dimension in from here to here. Maybe let's bring it out. Put a dimension in there to there, like so. And the last thing I might do is pop a dimension over here for this hole here. And we're beginning to get there now with dimensions, but what we haven't said, although this is a center line, we haven't actually explicitly said that this is mirrored, because this could be a center line between these two, and this bit could be longer. It might be only a millimetre longer, but it might not be visually obvious. So I would perhaps annotate with a note at this point, entire object mirrored around center line, just so it's clear that all of these dimensions relate to this side as well. So if you want to put notes in, we've got a text menu at the top here. We can just put a random text box in anywhere and start typing away, which is handy. But we can also put in notes and leader notes, and I'm never entirely sure about the difference, I have to say. Something I need to find out more about, but let's just put a note in. And automatic, so it tries to work out what you're trying to do and work it out for you. Let's leave it on that. And I'm just going to select anything. I might select here just so it's pointing to the object. I'm not trying to select any particular thing. So leader notes or notes are very good if you want to point to something. You might just want to put this in a text box, but you could also put it in a pointed box or a leader note. And then we can type in object, where it is spelled. You can type in whatever we want, we can change the text, we can use all the usual things that you can do with text, right, left, justified, size, bold, italic, underline, whatever you want. And there's symbols down there as well, should you need all sorts of symbols. And then once you're finished with that, it's on close, and you can, you've got a leader note or a note which directly relates to a particular thing. It's obviously got your arrow. So that's a really handy thing to know how to do. Yes?
Having created text, you can't edit it, can you?
Should be able to double click on it. Double click on it, swipe it, change it, do what you want. So dimensioning, text, notes, hopefully pretty straightforward. But if you want to, there's other functionality in the create menu which is really useful. So you can section things, so you can chop them in half and open them up and section them. You can zoom in on things. You can put breaks in things, so if you've got a really long object, you can actually put a break in it and shorten it with the standard notation of a break. And you can also do, which is I think quite a new one, auxiliary view. So if you've got an angled object and you want to have a projection from that particular plane or face or surface, you can have that angled view as well. I thought I'd show you a couple of them, which are the most useful ones, the detail view and the section view. The detail view is really useful, obviously, because it means you can just zoom in on a bit of it and have it at a different scale, which can be helpful for describing certain things. So I'm going to do a detail view by clicking on detail view, and basically it's asking select parent view, which is the bit you want to, which view do you want to detail? I'm going to detail the side view. This one doesn't really need a detail view, obviously, but let's suggest that it does. I'm going to click on that one, and then you need to pick a center point. And what it's going to do is create a circle around the center point, and it's going to zoom in on that part of the drawing. So I'm going to, if you hover around, it'll snap to things that are trying to be helpful. I'm going to hover to the midpoint of that top face and click once and drag out my circle. Now you can have this as big or as small as you like. I'm going to make mine this kind of size, I think. And we've also got over here, we've got different scale sizes. So we can, obviously explode this or expand this view to being whatever size we want. I'll stick with 2:1 for now. So when I click another time, then we've got our projected view coming out, our detail view rather. We can put this anywhere. It doesn't have to be in line with our side view and our front view. We can put it wherever works within our layout, so we've got space for it. So I'm just going to put it over here. And I'm going to click OK. And what you can see here now, we've got the circle of our detail view, we've got A next to it, and we've got A, and in brackets the scale that detail view is. So it relates, A, well that's the detail view, that's 2:1, and then you can start dimensioning it or put it in notes or whatever you want at that detail view. If we want to chop something in half, section view, we can do so as well, and that's the next one along, next one back rather, section view. So if I click on that one, and again it's asking us, well, what do you want to chop in half, what do you want to section? I'm going to go for the top one, click on it once, and now it's basically what it wants you to tell it is what line do you want to chop it basically through. It can be that way, it can be diagonally, it can be whatever you want it to be. You have to specify a start point and end point for that line to chop it in half. That makes sense. So I'm going to click up here at this midpoint. If you remember, a triangle in Fusion always represents a midpoint. So we know that's the midpoint of the part. And I'm going to click down here on the other midpoint. And then I'm going to click OK. Now this time this is a section view and is projected. So it's not like a detailed view. Because a detailed view has got bigger, it doesn't make sense to project it. But a section view, you would still project. And basically what it's doing is chopping, and we can change the scale if we want to. It's chopping the component in half around this point here, and we are looking at this part here. And the bit that's been chopped in half, that's been chopped through, has been hatched. You can see that's the bit, and that's the section view from that point. And again, we've got B, the section view, and B one-to-one, so you know which bit relates to what. And we can move these around, pick them up if they're a bit too far away, and we can click on anything. Oh, that's interesting. We can choose the type of hatch pattern. I didn't realise that, that's quite cool. Didn't know that. That's quite useful actually. But you can double click on any of them and you can go back into the drawing view and change the appearance and change the scale, just in the same way you can with any base view or any of the projected views. Other things that you can do that help sort of dimension things, we've got in our geometry menu a couple of other really useful features. If you want to get the center point of a circle and you want to, dimension a center point in the circle, you can actually hover over it and pick it up quite easily. But if you want to mark that center point and make it visible, we can go up to geometry and put in a center mark, and it will take any circle or any arc, and it'll actually show you or show on the drawing where that center point is, which might be useful.
Presumably that's good if you're going to print your diagram, glue it on top of something, and then you're going to line a drill bit.
Yeah, really useful for something like that, absolutely. Another really useful little feature is edge extension. So if you've got a curved element and you want to show where the straight lines that make that curved element meet, if that makes sense, really handy. We've got edge extension, so I can select one edge, select the other edge, and it will just show where they meet again, and you can pick it up. So just useful stuff, really.
Something to bear in mind what you just said about if you're printing something and if you printed it to a PDF and then when you print it onto a sheet of paper, make sure that the page scaling in Acrobat is set to actual size.
Yes.
Because Acrobat defaults to fit it to the page with margins, and then you get it stuck to the wrong size.
Very good point. Yeah, it's easy to get caught out like that. No, that's true. So before we move on to the next bit, is any elements anyone wants to go back over, or did that all make perfect sense? That made perfect sense.
From that, is it made a separate file which is then the drawing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I haven't saved it yet, but once this is saved, let's do it now. It saves it as.
Can someone reassemble a 3D model from it?
So these are linked to the 3D model. So if you go back and change the 3D model, it will update the drawing. So when you go to save, it will pick up the original model it was created from, and then it'll put in the word drawing at the end, and then it will save it as a separate file, but it is a linked file. So let's have a look at that now. So I'll click on save now, and I'm just going to go back. So now if we want to make a change to our design, and there's something we've decided we've got wrong, because actually there is something that's wrong here. This circle, I believe, is in fact 9mm, and the one on this side is 8.5, so there's a mistake. So I want to go back and change it. I can't do that in the drawing. Drawing just describes what you've created as a model. I have to go back to the model. So if I go back to this model here, and we can see that 8.5, 9mm, that was a bit dopey. So let's pick up that sketch, find where that sketch exists, edit sketch. And I'm not going to fiddle around with it too much, just flatten and extrude the bigger size. So now that is 9mm, that one will remain as 9mm. Now, for it to update to the drawing, you have to hit the save button. Okay, otherwise it won't update, or it won't change the drawing. So I'm going to hit the save button. I'm going to create a new version at this point. Now if I go back to this drawing, we will have a warning. Changes have been made to a reference design. Basically said something's happened to the design that this drawing is based on. It hasn't automatically updated. As you can see, it's still 8.5 here. It's not 9mm. To trigger it to update the design, it's the same as in any other sort of when you're bringing in a part or deriving a part, or you've got a link part from something else. We have to go up here and click this icon up here to update it. So I click on that. That's interesting. I would have thought it would just update it. That should now be, I might have to delete and redo the dimension. That's a bit bad. I thought it would just update the dimension rather than giving you a warning. I guess it's showing you where the change has happened, maybe. But the point is you can go back, change the design, update it, and then it looks like you have to sort out the dimensions that need changing, which I don't think it used to do. Anyway. So there's that element. Another thing to have a look at, which might be of use, are BOMs, bill of materials, parts lists. And it will automatically create, it's quite a basic BOM that it will create. If you're using this kind of stuff all the time, you can get, there's quite good add-ons within Fusion for more complex BOMs. And you can go to the Fusion store, and I think there's a couple of different add-ons if you really want to get into your BOMs. Which you can use, but I'll show you the basic BOM, or table as they call it. I always call them BOMs. Lots of different types of tables, and I'll be the first to admit I don't know all of them. I just know the basic BOM, I have to say. But you can investigate all the different types of tables. It won't be in the exam. There's a little bit about drawings in the exam, but it's pretty basic. So the table, to create a table, I'm going to click on it. You can pick all your different types, but it'll just do the standard automatic type if you don't move away from the default. And basically, we can choose where we want to put our BOM. We can snap it to an edge, the edge of our border, should we wish. Let's do that, makes sense. I'm going to click that. And it will pick up all the information that it has about the part. So it's item 2. The reason it's item 2 is because it's actually item 2 in our overall assembly here. If we didn't have it as part of an assembly, just modeled on its own, it would be item 1, so there's only one thing. Quantity, obviously there's only one of them in this particular drawing. The part name is picked up, so the component name. You should be able to type in the description, but it'll also show the material as well. So if you want to change the material again, you have to go back into your model and redefine the material as something else. You remember how to do that. And obviously, the more parts you have, the longer that list will be. And you can add more stuff to that standard BOM. Okay, you can add, if I remember how to do it, I believe you can add, there we go, double click on it. We can, if you've got components and subcomponents, you can choose whether you want the components and subcomponents, how they're displayed. And you can also choose various other things like part name, turn off description, perhaps part name might be more useful, part number. That's interesting, look at that. Mass might be useful. So you can choose the kind of things you want to show in that BOM.
If you have multiple sheets with many different lists. Can you make a blank sheet? Say you had something that you knew was going to be a massive list. You just make another sheet, put the list on that, and it will still pick up the other sheets.
I've never tried. You're thinking of cut lists, aren't you? Or are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, like a little bit, but I was also thinking,
yeah.
if you had 40 items on that task list, that's a massive table. If you make a second sheet at the bottom left, can you put that table on a blank sheet? And it's still stuff.
I'm not sure. I've never tried. I'd have to give it a go. When you do make another sheet, I would have thought the bomb might just relate to what's on that sheet. But whether you can take that bomb to another sheet and it will pick up what's not on the sheet, it works.
However, if you've just got the personal use version, you can only create a single sheet in it.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, you can create as many drawings as you like, but it's only one sheet per drawing.
So you can't add another sheet down here?
No.
You don't have that plus
I've
sign?
got plus, but I can't.
Nothing happens? There are, within technical drawings, there are a couple of other really annoying restrictions when it comes to technical drawings. If you've got the free edition, which I'll come on to later, and they are really annoying.
The way around it is that you just create multiple drawings and they're saved as separate files. And they still will update from the master.
But I guess those become one of your 10, do they?
Yes, they must be.
It's like they do want you to pay for it.
Really irritating.
It's so expensive as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So on this
Yeah.
So how did you change, so how do I go back to the sketch and then change the dimension of something? Because it was saying that I was over constraining it, so...
Oh, right, yeah,
on
sure.
The wrong thing.
So, I mean, all I did with in this was find out where something is, where the problem might be. You can kind of just select by clicking on it, and it will show you down there in the timeline. So I've clicked on this. I want to find out where I need to go in my timeline to change it without trying to work. Sorry, I'll skip through it a bit quickly. Trying to work out which component was it in, blah blah blah. I should go to the component really. So I could go into upper, and then I could do the same thing, and it will show in the shortened timeline where that extrusion is. And then if we want to change the sketch from that extrusion, it's always going to be the sketch that's just before it. So that's kind of the detective work. Ideally, I was a bit lazy there, I just went straight, clicked on it straight there without going into the component, but you can go into the component, click on that, it will show you where the extrusion is or the feature, if it's not an extrusion, and the sketch will be just before it. So then you can right click on that sketch, edit the sketch, and you can make your change. If you change something in the sketch, remember you're going to have to go back and select that change in the extrusion. So if I were now to change that to say 12 millimeters, make it really big, and I finish that sketch, oh, it has done it. Okay. Didn't think it would update automatically, it doesn't always. Oh, that's because I added a circle. That's right, the first time. I just changed it. Sorry if that was confusing. But now, once you've saved that, and you go back to your drawing, you just have to hit that update triangle, that warning triangle. Or to go to that again, Stephen, or is that okay?
What? I'm having trouble with it when I'm clicking it. It's not changing. There we go. Mine just looks totally different to this.
So all you need to do is go to the upper component, and then if we click on that, you should see it looking like that down here. We go to the sketch that drives that feature, and right click on that to edit it. Then what I did was, rather than try and change the circle that was there, because it's a projected circle, and we know that because it's purple, I just drew another circle. So you go to edit sketch? Cool. So hopefully you should have something that looks like that. So I just went to create circle and just created another circle of 9mm. The reason I didn't try and change that circle is because it's projected from something else. I could go back and do more detective work and find where that was from, or I could be lazy and not. So we've got a 9mm circle now, and when you finish that sketch, what you will have to do, once disappeared altogether, that was the sketch we're working on, we now have to go back to that extrusion, edit that. Right-clicking on it and clicking Edit Feature, and making sure we select both the inner and outer circle. And then click OK. Is it not working for you still? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, it won't move my marker back along now. So
Okay.
don't want him to do something else.
You can unpick it maybe later on. Other bits and bobs to mention about technical drawing environment and the layout. We've got the border itself and the title block, which are just the defaults, but we can change both of these should we wish. If we want, looking at the title block first, this is the standard one that Fusion brings in, and it's brought in who it was created by and the date, and it's given it a title. Sheet 1 of 1 because on one sheet there. We can change any of this. If I double click on it, any of the text, we can delete any text we want, we can add any text, and these are just sort of, suggestions, these light blue elements. We can just click on it once and drawing number, whatever we want. Pretty straightforward, hopefully. We can also, or remember to hit enter. We can put in any text we want and change any text very simply just by clicking or double clicking on any of the text. We can also, should we want to put on our logo, our company logo, we can insert an image and put this anywhere. We can put it anywhere, but we might want to put it in our title block. And oh my goodness, I should really put the new university logo in, shouldn't I? But I'm not going to. And if there's where it's a transfer, there we go. So we can insert an image just in the same way we insert a reference canvas. It's exactly the same kind of thing. We can scale it up, move it around quite simply. Very straightforward, really. And then we can also save this setup as a template as well if we want. And you can save it as a template and then open it up as a template from your, so you're not having to do that every time. If you want to edit good question. I think I'd have to look into that actually because I never do it. Drawing templates. Here we go. I know we might have to do it right from the outset. I think I've never done it, I'm afraid. And set it up, then save it. That was a bad example. Sorry, Helen. In terms of changing the title, the border, again, we can double click on that. We can click on it once, right click, and edit border. And it will take us into this kind of sketch environment where we can change line widths, we can change sizes, we can do all sorts of things to change the border as well, should you want to. Again, I've never bothered. I've always gone with the default. But you can do the same thing with the title block as well. You can draw your own one on this kind of 2D layout, very basic 2D layout, should you wish. And again, click on it once, right click, edit title block, and it should bring you into, yeah, here we go, into the same workspace. It's a bit awkward. So you click on it to select it, right click, and then move down to edit title block. So it's a bit annoying because if you just right click, it doesn't do it. So you click on it once to select it, turns blue, then right click on it, and then edit title block. Oh, if you just click on it once. Yeah, no, you've got to, that won't work. So if you right click on it where it's black, that's what you'll get. If you click on it, if you just hover over it, whilst it's hovering over it's black, you click on it once with your left mouse button, and it should just turn blue. That's strange. It should work. Well, just try clicking on it once. It might not turn blue, but click on it and then right click. It is a bit awkward, I have to say. There's too many right click menus there going on. Why they can't just have it on the standard right click menu, I don't know. So that's kind of the very basics of technical drawing, but what you can also do is from the same model we can create another drawing. So you can, for those that have the other educational or full license, you can create a whole range of drawings that are saved within one document. And to do that, we just go down to the bottom here and create a new drawing by using the plus button down here. And then we're presented with, same as we were before, the same drawing size. We've now got drawing 2 of 2, or sheet 2 of 2. It's completely blank and it hasn't given us a base view to start off with, so we need to do that. We need to actually go over and click base view to bring in our base view. And what it will do here is bring in everything, and you can again choose what you want to show. And again, we can set the scale however we want, and the views. And at this stage, I can't decide what I want. I can't just select something. I've got to bring everything in, and then deselect what I don't want, essentially. So if I click once here, and click over here, now you can see that all of our components are being shown, and I can choose the next component by deselecting the ones I don't want. So if I wanted focusing on just the base view on this one, I can just turn off all of these other components, and we're just looking at that one now. That makes sense. Yeah, sure. So let's go back. So base view, it should bring in everything like that.
Yeah, I got that bit.
I'm just going to make mine 1 to 1 and click once and put it somewhere.
Yeah, that bit.
Click OK. And it should come up with.
Yeah.
Cool.
What if you have something where it's got 100 parts? Do you have to do that like every single?
Yeah, that's, well, if you've got something that's like, that is a tedious way of doing it. I haven't found another way, because when you start a new drawing, you can select what you want, but that's what seems to happen when you create a new drawing at this stage. It might be that you can hold shift down and deselect, all of them at once, as it were. I would have thought. But yeah, you're right, it does seem a slightly tedious way, but I should imagine you can probably.
You alt click the one you want to keep active,
Yeah.
and it will turn all that stuff.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Or if you can do the right click isolate thing, like you do in
There you go.
suppress all
Suppress all except selected. There we go. Right click menu. Yes. Right.
When you very first went from the design to the drawing,
Yeah.
did you select beforehand the one that you wanted to bring in?
Yes, I'll go over that bit again in a second. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit easier when you're coming straight from the design. But yeah, right-click menu comes to your rescue again, so you can suppress all except selected, which is ideal, obviously. And so obviously you can create a book of drawings or a range of drawings, depending on how everyone. And it's all stored within one document.
I'm not sure how to create a template for the border and title block. But when you create the drawing, one of the options there is template. And there's a drop down, and you've got from scratch or browse.
Yeah, so you must be saving it once you've created that template. It'll save it locally.
And the browse bit is greyed out for me. Again, that's a full version only feature. So
I guess they're thinking this, mostly you're only going to be using this if you're sending this off to engineers to get stuff made, and you're probably not going to be doing that as a hobbyist, but it's a bit mean, isn't it, frankly?
It's beyond the hobbyist thing, because the free version is for everyone that turns over less than 100 grand
I know.
a year, which is quite a lot.
I know.
They could just make it a full version for everyone, but just make it like 30 grand.
I know. Yeah.
Pull more people behind it.
I agree. So, I mean, mostly it's the only real workspace, and there's a bit in generative design, which is a bit sort of a bit more specialist. You can understand them charging for that, maybe, but this does seem a bit, I have to say, a bit penny pinching. The other really annoying thing that you can't do with the hobbyist account is you can't export, which is just horrible, frankly.
You also can't use their cloud rendering thing as well.
Is that not part of the hobbyist thing?
I don't think so. It might be.
You can buy it. Yeah, with an educational account, you get it all. But with a professional account or hobbyist account, you can still buy it.
I think you get a certain amount of credits, and then you have to buy.
For the commercial account, it's 100 credits. I don't know what you get as a hobbyist. It might be less. It might be really again.
But you can print to a PDF if you've got something like Cube PDF Writer. It will let you print it to a PDF.
Yeah, sure. So it's just whether or not it comes in the right scale and all that kind of stuff, isn't it, really? Just while we're having a look at exporting drawings, obviously you can export as a PDF. Other things you can export as DXF or DWGs, and I'll come on to the differences and why and other bits about them. You can also export the BOM as a CSV, spreadsheet format, should you wish. In terms of exporting DWGs and DXFs, you've only really got two options. You've got AutoCAD DWG and simplified DWG. I tend to recommend people always export as a simplified DWG, simply because if you are bringing it into AutoCAD, you can break apart the components in a way that you can't if you bring it in as a standard AutoCAD DWG. And this is something I had with one of my clients who wanted to bring in some stuff I'd done like this, bring it into AutoCAD, separate it out, he wanted to rearrange it, do stuff to it. If you save it as a standard AutoCAD DWG, it comes in as a block and you can't explode it. Within AutoCAD, it won't let you for some reason. But if you save it as a simplified DWG, you can. So it always seems to me, whatever you do, you might as well just save it as a simplified DWG, unless you don't want someone to muck about with it, I suppose. So those are your two options there. The other thing you can export at is a DXF. And you only get one type of DXF. Well, for some reason or other, they've chosen the 2013 version. It seems quite random, but it's probably the one that will work the best. Sorry if you can't see that. That's just popped up when I hit export, and it's just your standard save as dialog box. Down at the type, it's just 2013, as I say. I mean, generally speaking, I wouldn't export out of this if I was going to take it to I guess if you take it to a plotter, you might want to use this. Certainly if you want to take it to a laser cutter, I wouldn't export out of Fusion for laser cutting in this way. There are better ways of doing it. But you have got the option of DXF, and those earlier types of DXFs can work better with legacy plotters and older equipment as well. Probably why.
About laser cutters. I want to recreate something that I've made and have it laser cut.
Yep.
So what would be the best?
Well, I'll show you that, because we're coming to the end of the bit I wanted to talk to you about technical drawings, we've got a short amount, like 15 minutes or so, for one other miscellaneous thing and just general Q&A. And we haven't got much time, unfortunately, because we then have to move on to the exam for those who want to take it. But before we do that, is any aspects of the drawing bit anyone wants me to go over again? Okay, sorry if it was a bit rushed, but hopefully all the information's there for you to get going and start creating drawings should you need. So we can look at your question, Stephen, and there's a really quick trick which I'll show you when it comes to extracting stuff and laser cutting specifically. Any other sort of general questions anyone wants to, that we can cover in about 15 minutes without getting really in depth?
I had a question about when you do a new copy in a drawing in sketch mode, can you change the kind of point that it's moving or copying from? Do you know, like it comes up with this kind of...
Yeah, I do indeed.
And so doing something new, it's a real pain trying to get it to line up because the drawing is like on a scale of like, you know, 10 meters.
Sure. Okay. Let's just see if we can recreate something. So let's go to move copy. And over here we've got move type. So this is just your standard sort of pick up, move it anywhere, but you've got point to point.
Okay.
So in fact, let's make a point. So let's put a point over there. And oh, I've done two of them by mistake. Let's do a move copy, pick up the object and do it point to point, and then we should be able to select one point and another point
Okay.
and move it like that. And there are other ways, point to position, and we've got rotate. So we can basically split this down. The free move can be turned into a translator or pan if you like, or rotate, but point to point is very handy. Yeah. That's very super fast, yeah. So I like those kind of questions. Ones I can actually answer as well are good. Let's laser cutting. Let's try and I'll just try and pick up a useful example that actually makes sense. Let's go back to this one. Say, for instance, we wanted to pick up this basically this design here from above, and we wanted to turn that into a DXF ready for laser cutting. What you can do, we can always turn on any of our sketches. So we've got, we've done it here. We can look at this sketch here. We can say, well, actually, at this point, I can right-click on any of these sketches and save as a DXF from this point. But what if I save this as a DXF now? It will basically, if I turn that off, this is what you'll get. And that's not what you want for laser cutting. It's got too much information and not enough information. So you just want the outside line, basically, or the information that you want. So the way to do that is quite nice, actually. So basically, navigate to the view that you want. And if we go to create sketch, and if I just click on the face that we want to create a sketch on, click on that once, and then finish the sketch. That's all we're going to do. It will automatically pick up, it's turned slightly blue, it's picked up all that geometry just by clicking on that. If I right click on that now and save that as DXF, let's do it, and you can see hopefully. If I go into the laser cutting program, which I happen to have open, and import it in, through the horrible dialog boxes there, through demo, you can see it's just brought in just the information that we want. And it's a really nice trick, basically, that Fusion does. It makes it super quick. The only downside is that if you have multiple parts, it'll only pick up on the surface you've clicked on. So, to do that, let's just create that problem. Rectangle panel. I'm just going to make a copy of this. Say we wanted that, something like that, laser cut, 3 of them. When I go to create my sketch, I'm going to click on one of them and it will pick up that information. Next, I'm going to go to project. I'm going to just hit P on the keyboard and make sure I hover over it so the whole thing turns red. Click on that once, click on that once, and now finish that sketch. All those 3 will then be available as one DXF, and you can bring that in one go. So that's the way to quickly just extract that sort of surface information for laser cutting. So that's where I go.
Is this what you have to do for me this one?
No. No, because this is for specific laser cutting. That's it. Within Fusion, you can run laser cutters from within the manufacturing workspace. We haven't got round to the point of actually doing that yet, because we like our Lightburn software because it can do a whole heap more than Fusion can do when it comes to working more creatively. So we tend to extract stuff that we want, chuck it in Lightburn and do other stuff to it. But you can run laser cutters if you set them up properly out of Fusion. What I did for you, we're going into the manufacturing workspace, which is probably about another 4-day course in itself, really, to sort of understand. But that's where you can run obviously all the CNC machines from that on this, as I say. Not something to be covered in the next 5 minutes, unfortunately. Any other questions? I've got one other miscellaneous thing, and it's really useful for those doing the exam, which I'll show you. Is there any other sort of general questions you want to look at? Okay, so there's one more example. Let's go back to my this one here, and just going to click on boundary fill example. This is another feature which is just a little bit of an odd feature within Fusion, but I know it pops up in the exam occasionally, and so I just wanted to show you this particular feature. I never use it, but it's something that you may want to use at some point. So let's just show you what it is and what it does. So here I've got a shape, and let's just have a look at it. It's a revolved shape. This is the profile that the revolve's created from, and that's just a standard 360-degree revolve. What boundary fill does, you can basically create some kind of plane, or generally a plane, that intersects that shape, and you can tell Fusion to fill in up to that plane. And the way to do that is to create, well, first things first is to create a plane you want to fill it into. So I'm going to create an offset plane, and I'm going to click on, say, that plane, and bring that up. Very well. Turned off. I'm going to create that plane. So we kind of see that plane is intersecting. So that offset plane, I brought it up 15 millimeters, and you can kind of see it's cutting through that curved shape. So a boundary fill will basically, it's kind of a bit of a shortcut, I suppose. You can basically tell Fusion to fill up to that point. That's all a boundary fill does. And it's in a create menu, and it's right down almost at the bottom, boundary fill. And I click on this, and basically it's asking you what do you want to fill, what's the general shape you want to work with. The tools are this one here and the plane we want to use. And then we need to select the cell, the bit that we want to fill in. And the bit that we want to fill in is this middle bit here, that bit in between the bottom of that curve and that plane. We can't actually, if we did try and fill in all the rest of it, it wouldn't necessarily work. There are limitations of what you can do. I mean, you can fill in that part, but if you try to fill in other parts, it's not fully contained, so it won't let you fill it in. From this point, you can create a new body. So it can be a separate body, it can be a component like anything else, or you can join it, should you wish. And you can also remove tools as well. So it's another way of kind of intersecting things. So it does a similar thing as a lot of the other features, but it does it in this kind of little shortcut way. I'm going to click on OK, and you can see it's kind of just filled in that space up to that plane.
So So can you use anything as a tool? It doesn't have to be a construction plane.
You can use anything as a tool, as I understand it, but a construction plane is quite a useful thing because if it's, I guess, logically speaking, why would you do this other than do a combine or an intersect using the combine tool or the cut tool? So it's kind of just a quick way if you want to do something. The plane's the obvious way, perhaps, of doing this without having to go back into a sketch or draw a whole nother thing. It seems to be, to me, a bit of a shortcut, which I always forget's there, so I never really use it. But it does pop up in the exam, a question about a boundary fill. So I just wanted to show everyone that it's pretty straightforward, but it's slightly different to the rest of Fusion almost in the way that it works. It's not driven by a sketch, it's not an extrusion, revolve, or anything like that. It's a bit more like combine and intersect and join feature. So sorry that's tacked on right at the end, but it's only really relevant to those. So I think that's pretty much it for the taught element of the course. Hopefully it's given you a bit of a toolbox or expanded the toolbox you already has in terms of all the classical ways of modelling and things like surface modelling and sculpting as well. And hopefully it'll be useful. And hopefully it will cover most things that are in the exam should you decide to do it.